This is Kent Hance, best storyteller in Texas. The saying today is a budget tells us what we can't spend, and Congress always ignores it.
Who said that?
That was said by one unnamed source in Congress. They're not going to put their name on there and get everybody mad at them.
Right.
Before I started today, I want to mention my law partner, Terry Scarborough, been fighting cancer for a couple of years, and we had a dinner the other night with him, and there was a guy there, Chris Todd. Chris is a Texas Tech guy, went to law school at the University of Texas, and was a prosecutor when Giuliani was running the Southern District of New York. And he told me a story the other night that's one of my favorites, that they had indicted a bunch of the mob in New York, and the main witness for the prosecution was Jimmy the Weasel. Yeah, I don't know his last name, but he had executed 12 people, and they gave him immunity on that. That's how bad they wanted the mob. And the lawyers for all the defendants had gone through and asked him a lot of questions. Do you know so-and-so? And he'd say, yeah, I killed him. And how'd you kill him? I had a silencer on a gun. I shot him from across the street. Stuff like that, pretty
Cold-blooded
and grab your attention if you're on the jury or if you're one of the lawyers. And finally, one of the last lawyers came up and said, it's his time to ask questions. And he walked up and approached a witness and said, do you know who I am? And Jimmy the Weasel said, no. He said, you know my name? He said, no. He said, you know where I live? He said, no. And he said, Judge, I don't have any other questions. He's just trying to make sure that Jimmy the Weasel didn't get him. And I always like that. Judge, I don't have any other questions. That's all my questions.
Oh, that's funny. That's good. I'm curious about your hat. What is it?
My hat is from the sod poodles, Amarillo sod poodles. Jerry Hodge, my friend that passed away some time ago, and he was big. It was his ballpark, named after him. Instead of being called the Prairie Dogs, they call them the Sod Poodles.
I love it.
And so it's. I just happened to grab that hat this morning. I keep anywhere from 50 to 100 hats. Different places I go, and I'll get me a hat, and I have some funny ones in that. And some good ones. Have some that people give me that I can't wear. But got
to be careful in politics what hat you put on too.
And where you're going.
Yeah,
where you're going. Today I want to talk a little about the continuing resolution and budget process in Congress. One of the few times that they have not had to use any type of continuing resolution that the budget was done correctly and done on time was 1979, my first year in Congress.
Wow. And
there's been a few since then, but it's just rare. Congress in the spring will draft a budget, and Jody Arrington from Lubbock is the chairman of the Budget Committee, and he's in his second term. He can serve as chairman 3 terms. They term limit him at 3. And he's done a good job. But what they do, they pass a budget, and then the appropriations committees have hearings, and then they start appropriating the money for the budget. And the fiscal year for a federal government goes from October 1 each year until the end of September of the next year. And what has happened is the 12 appropriations bills, they may get a few done, but they don't get them all done. So it comes up, and for the government to continue to operate, they have to have a continuing resolution. And part of that resolution is sometimes they have to expand the debt. They have to borrow more money. And the Republicans want the Democrats president. They don't cut him any slack. They go after him hard on it. And the Democrats cut a little slack because they've been so big on spending. But they will hit on them, in issues for increasing the debt limit. And most members don't want to increase the debt limit. and that I've always said I think the people that vote for the final budget and vote for the final appropriations bills, if they're short of money, they need to vote to expand the debt because they voted to spend the money. Mm-hmm. And the U.S. government, you really don't have much of a choice. You can shut it down for a while. Newt Gingrich shut it down for 6 or 7 days and really caught hell over it. The mainstream media, usually on something like that, they will hit the Republicans pretty hard on it, and they get the blame. And they figured that out after over the last 20, 30 years. And so they're reluctant to expand the debt. They don't want to do that, but at some point in time, you have to do it, and they print more bonds, they sell more bonds, and it's a bad way to do business. On a budget, if they stayed within that budget, which they could, it would work. An idea I think that would be good is to make cuts across the board, because once you get into fighting over individual projects and everything, then that just it makes it difficult to get anything done, or enough people make compromises that it goes through too fast. This first continuing resolution had a lot of things in there that general public wouldn't be for, and Elon Musk and his little committee, they certainly were not part of those things. Mm-hmm. Now, on Elon Musk, they can't abolish anything, but they make the recommendation to the president and to the Congress. And I think that with Trump and his popularity among Republicans, we'll be able to pass some of the things that Musk and Vivek come up with. And that, that's going to be very interesting to watch. They're going to have a lot of suggestions. But keep in mind, you've got the things you can't, it's 70% of the budget you don't have any control over. They're mandates, they're entitlement programs. And I've always said until you address entitlement programs, you're not going to be able to get the spending under control. But it goes back to my high school bookkeeping teacher, Miss Littlepage, that said you got money coming in, you got money going out. If more goes out than comes in, you're going broke. That's not a genius to say it. I hope she doesn't roll over in the grave and say that. She was very smart and nice lady. But it doesn't take a genius to figure out that this is something that it will not sustain itself. Mm-hmm. I think that we've got a quote in there about federal spending today from Milton Friedman. And when Reagan was in the White House, I met with Milton Friedman a couple of times, and he is a brilliant guy, but had a lot of common sense as well.
As I said before, keep your eye on one thing and one thing only, how much government is spending. Because that's the true tax. Every budget is balanced. There is no such thing as an unbalanced federal budget. You're paying for it. If you're not paying for it through it in the form of explicit taxes, you're paying for it indirectly in the form of inflation or in the form of borrowing. And the thing you should keep your eye on is what government spends. And the real problem is to hold down government spending as a fraction of our income. And if you do that, you can stop worrying about the debt.
He comes back and he says it's spending, federal spending. You're going to have inflation. You're going to have the more you spend, that especially when you don't have it, you're going to create problems, and we've seen that. And with the amount of money on ARPA that Biden spent, it's so much money chasing so few goods, and it makes it go up, and inflation goes up, and it hurts everybody. But the top people are going to be less affected by inflation than the bottom people. And the bottom people in the budget, they suffer immensely when there's tremendous inflation. I think there's a chance that we can get spending somewhat under control, but I still go back to, I think that they've got to address the issues on some of the entitlement programs. Just no way getting around it.
That's a sticky subject.
It's a sticky subject because if you if you come in and say, I'd like to slow down the increases in Social Security, well, I mean, the other side, if you're a Republican, the Democrats run ads against you all the time. He wants to abolish Social Security. He wants to kill it. He wants to, and scares people. And it scares them tremendously. And there's no reason. We last made adjustments on Social Security funding in '82. It was a bipartisan group, Tip O'Neill and Ronald Reagan, and they agreed and they put it off. This year, the Social Security retirement age will go up 2 months. 2 months is, it's not going to hurt anyone. If they're disabled, they'll be on anyway, and so 2 months. People are living longer than they used to, and I think that young people, if they look at their future as far as Social Security is concerned, it's not going to be good, and especially with the way spending is taking place.
Didn't Rand Paul just introduce something that just got defeated, like by 3 to 93 votes or something? That was in the Senate.
I'm not familiar with it, but that would not surprise me that he would address that issue and that he could get a 3 to 93 vote.
Yeah, it was to raise the age to 70, I believe.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. He did, and raising the age faster. They're raising it 2 months a year. And if you raised it, to 70 all of a sudden, people are living longer. They're in better shape. Well, I'm 82. I'm still working 10, 12 hours a day. And so that we have to keep in mind that when was Social Security passed and what it was passed as a supplement. It was not passed as something to live on. Unfortunately, there are a few people that have to live on that, but if they're living on Social Security, they're also eligible for food stamps and subsidized housing, Section 8.
That reminds me of a great interview. You should go back through the library of episodes, the interview and discussion you had with Senator Phil Gramm in the book that he released last year. Really a good listen.
It is, and if you want to understand more about the budget and why the budget is not hurting poor people, it's designed, it's hurting everyone. And it's got double accounting. It's got all kinds of gimmicks that allows the government to spend more and more. If you've got gimmicks, and that's what we have with a lot of the it's just increasingly impossible to balance the budget.
I believe the book was "The Rich Are Getting Richer" is a myth.
Yes.
Yeah, and he makes some really great points and breaks down the numbers, the real numbers of that idea that the rich are getting richer.
Senator Graham is one of the most knowledgeable persons ever served in Congress. He was an economist, taught economics at Texas A&M, and go back and look in the history of our files and see the interview with Senator Phil Gramm, and you'll enjoy it. It's not but about 25, 30 minutes, and sometime you're driving someplace, be sure and listen to that. There's been some sign vigilantes, and this was under, stupid criminals. I don't know if they'd be called stupid or not, but that's what I read it under. The sign vigilantes in Boulder, Colorado. And I wrote down some of they've taken signs, metal signs, and added to them, not with a cardboard, box with a sign written on it. They've gotten the signs and that are just like a speeding sign or something else, and they've put it on the signpost of, like, if there's a speed limit 30 miles an hour, right below it they've got some signs that somebody put up and paint them. They're very professional, and one of them says "slow the F down," but it doesn't have. They spell it out. They spell it out. Another one says "don't kill any little kids today," and another one said "slow down, blank head."
Wow.
And a bunch of the neighbors were getting tired of people speeding and everything, and so they've gone out and had their own signs made. and which is illegal to do that. And so they're trying to keep them from doing it, adding to the real signs. But you're driving along, and you see the speed limit, 30 miles an hour, and the sign right below it says "Slow the F down." Golly, they call them the sign vigilantes in Boulder, Colorado. They had one that said, "Get off the effing phone,"
Yeah.
And that would appeal to a lot of people. Another thing I noticed in the news, a guy out of Oregon named Ken Reese, he turned 70 this week, but his kidney's 100. And when he had kidney problems, and his mother gave one of her kidneys, and she would have been 100 this last week.
Wow.
So his body is 70 except the kidney, and the kidney was 100.
Wow.
So and he said how thankful he is. She lived to be 84 or something like that. So she lived a good life. Also, we're at the time of the holidays, and Christmas is coming up, and the number one time of people giving a ring, an engagement ring, is during Christmas. What'd you get for Christmas? Got a ring, And there was a deal on the internet. They were telling you how to, if you bend over on your knee to ask for somebody's hand in marriage, you kneel on your right knee goes to the ground and your left knee stays up, so that you can pass along the engagement ring. I think when you have suggestions on how to appeal to somebody with an engagement on the internet, boy, they cover about anything. You can take any subject and type it in, and there'll be someone has shown you how to do something on YouTube or one of. I had a problem with the garage door, and I had one of the guys that works for me help me with it, and he just typed in garage door hanging up on the right side or something, and we had about 5 videos that we could look at and fix the garage door pretty fast. That one other thing I mentioned, that there was an expert on sleep and sleeping well that said that to start off a good day, that you need to slither out of bed, and I guess that's like a snake, and then crawl into the bathroom. Now, I've had some clients after a night that probably crawled into the bathroom and tried to get their senses about them, but I thought that was pretty unusual. So I get up and get out.
Get moving.
Yeah, get moving. It's not going to get any better.
I'm curious about your thoughts on the drones in New Jersey, and I want you to go back to growing up in Dimmitt, Texas. How do you think it'd get handled in Dimmitt with drones flying above you? What would have happened?
Well, I don't know. Snake Adams, the philosophical king of Dimmitt, would have had something to say about it. He's the one that was watching at the VFW and drinking beer when they landed on the moon. And he said, "Hell, that ain't the moon. I've been there." And they said, "No, you hadn't been there. You hadn't been to the moon." He said, "Not the moon. It's between Farmington and Gallup, New Mexico." And they said somebody looked up there and said, "By God, it does look like it." That they had the UFOs, the Roswell UFOs, and the Lubbock Lights, all about that time in the 50s when I was growing up. And everyone had an opinion, and it said it was people from Mars, and they looked and saw what we were like, and they didn't want to be like us, so they left, and left behind a few that made unusual appearances in the sky. Someone is doing something. I don't know if it's our own government or if it's the Chinese or Russians or whoever, or if it, might be someone from foreign soil. But I don't know. That's not something I'm directly involved in. I have no control over it, so I kind of glance at it and move on. Sandy, the last thing I'd say on budget process in Congress, it's broken, and they need to try to come up with a way to fix it. Maybe Elon Musk can come up with a way they can fix it. but it's going to take a vote of Congress to be able to do it. President can try on some of them with an executive order, but I think they'll wind up in the courts, and the courts are going to say, Congress got elected. They've got to make the decisions on what is cut and what's not cut. And there's also a possibility of a constitutional convention that would require a balanced budget with the exception for war or something like that. And enough states came very close to getting that done back in the 70s, and is something that should be done. If you've got a budget, most people don't have a budget in their day-to-day operations, but in their business, they will have a budget. Mm-hmm. You know, I've been in the apartment business. We always have a budget, and usually we stay pretty well close to it. And if you have a budget and you're reading the reports from different departments, it'll be obvious if you're failing in one area or something. You need to look into that, say what's happening. Why are we, such a failure in that regard? Mm-hmm. And so that the federal government just ignores it. They have a budget, and then they don't vote the appropriations bill, and so they have to start with a continuing and finish with a continuing resolution. I had one time the members of Congress got out Saturday. It was 5 days before Christmas, and but I had one time we didn't get out till Christmas Eve, and but there's always a big log jam at the end on the spending issue. Everyone, wants to spend certain amounts on certain things, and there's some want to spend everything on everything, and it go a little far. But I think that the key is you should not be expanding the debt ceiling if you didn't. I can understand the people not voting for it, that they didn't vote for the appropriations. Mm-hmm. They've got a justification. I didn't vote to spend that money. I shouldn't have to vote to expand the debt. The problem is some of the ones that vote to spend the money then don't want to vote to extend the debt and expand the debt. And, we're running up in the trillions of dollars, and that's just amazing. And next week I'll give you some examples on spending $1 million and $1 billion and $1 trillion. And I've got some good examples on that.
All right.
But just remember saying of the day, and have a Merry Christmas. And we'll be visiting with you one more time before the end of the year.